So I'd like to close the technology section here with a few words about the road ahead. So if you know Esri's release cadence, we've been releasing products, major releases around once a year. Earlier this year, we had 10.6 come out at the beginning of the year, and 10.6.1 is on its way before our user conference. We'll continue that pattern, 10.7 towards the end of the year, and we're putting a lot of energy into these emerging trends and capabilities that you see on the right. After the break this morning, we'll be spending some more time on some of these hot topics like AI and machine learning. As I said at the beginning, creating maximum impact and business value isn't just about the technology. And this is where we often get into trouble. So I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about infrastructure and organization. Just think about the infrastructure on which you run your IT and your spatial technology. Does it support your location strategy? Are the two conversations happening at the same time? Frankly, I have seen situations where there's a brilliant location strategy being developed over here, and there's an infrastructure plan being developed over here, and the two are not connected in any way. Maybe that's the exception, but I want to challenge you to be thinking about that. It's useful to step back and understand the common deployment patterns of ArcGIS for context. Of course, at one end of the spectrum, there's SaaS, ArcGIS Online, ready to go, easy to use, nothing to host and manage on your own. At the other end is ArcGIS Enterprise on-premise traditionally. And in the middle, more and more of you are considering the cloud, whether you're going to move your enterprise stack to the cloud and manage it yourself, or whether you're going to ask others to help you with that. What we see most often is hybrid deployments work very well. Parts of the system in ArcGIS Online, parts of it on-premise, parts of it in the cloud. The combination will be unique to you, but it is usually a very pragmatic way to move forward. Now, a lot of you are thinking about the cloud. We hear about this in every conversation, especially in the petroleum industry. And you all have different reasons you're thinking about it, and I'm sure those are solid, but it's useful to step back and understand why others are thinking about it, because there may be something you missed. And these reasons may not drive you towards the cloud. They may actually give you reasons to not go to the cloud, but they're worth thinking about. And they can fall in three different categories: business, technology drivers, and organizational. Nathan said earlier that at Chevron, they don't want to be in the business of running the servers on the back end. They want to be in the business of providing value to their business units. And that's a decision that they're making as they approach their decisions about cloud. You may have other drivers. Moving to the cloud is not a casual sport. And I have seen situations where it's taken lightly. Let me give you an example. Frankly, I've had a great time in Houston the last couple of days. So I'm thinking maybe right after I get off stage, I'm going to call my wife and suggest we move here. Well, I wouldn't say, let's pack the bags and get in the car this weekend, we're moving. We would be thinking it through. We would be thinking about, where do we want to live? What does our house want to look like? Do we need to do any improvements to the house before we move in? Once we get there, are we going to manage it ourselves? So many things to think about. It's no different when you're moving to the cloud. You need to prepare for that. Assess whether you're ready for the cloud. Is your system architecture cloud ready? Are you moving legacy systems to the cloud? Are you building from scratch in the cloud? Are your legacy systems ready? What kind of solutions are really going to be deployed in service to your location strategy? And then as you make the move, have you planned through, thought about the people that need to be involved, the project plan to get it done, the release plan with the security plan? There's lots of things to organize and plan for. And then, of course, once you're in the cloud, you need to think about operations. So there's important activities that are different than when you're on-premise, like monitoring, scanning, patching, and ultimately taking advantage of the latest releases of technology, integrating those into your cloud infrastructure, launching new applications and capabilities that you've developed or that you have developed for you. So I just want to stress that it's really critical to stop and think this through before you make the cloud move. And I'm sure most of you are doing this. Now, there's one new piece of technology that I'd like to share. You may have heard about it already. Esri released earlier this year, ArcGIS Monitor as a fully supported COTS product. This tool is specifically designed to help you manage and monitor your enterprise deployments. Whether they're in the cloud or on-premise, it helps you monitor the health and usage, service level agreements, diagnose unstable infrastructure, overloaded systems, and bottlenecks. Ultimately, it's improving performance, reducing administrative costs, and making end users more satisfied with their experience. By the way, this is being used on Esri's managed cloud services to monitor over 500 servers 24/7. So this brings me to the third section, organization. This is, to me, the most overlooked part of achieving a location strategy. As you think about what you're trying to accomplish at a business level, have you thought about your organization, the skills, talents, roles, objectives? What are you going to do in-house? Where are you going to get help? It takes a mindset these days to really focus on the business outcomes, to think about that vision and then establish quick wins against it. That means being okay with some uncertainty, being agile, taking what's out of the box and going with it, and then extending and modernizing over time. This mindset is critical. In addition, the right roles really need to be filled in an organization. Executive sponsors who are connected to the overall location strategy, who can get things done at an executive level, move mountains, and make things happen. Champions that do the hard work every day to get initiatives done, and technical leadership that actually does the wiring up and the building and the maintaining and the deploying with excellence. I would bet that many of you are wearing more than one of these hats, and that's a challenge. As I mentioned at the beginning, the technology has been shifting under our feet, and not only do we have the emerging big new trends, we also have this background trend that's been happening within GIS and IT. GIS professionals for many years were experts using expert tools. You know, the old story is, send me a pizza and I'll make you a map. And that was how the interaction went with the rest of the group. Someone's been there. We moved on to enterprise systems with work groups and teams, and the GIS managers thinking about things like servers and app development. And now we've moved into distributed systems, things in the cloud, things on-premise, work groups sharing together. The Chevron Map Hub is a great example of that. So what does that mean for the people in your organization? There are a lot of different roles that have emerged. No longer just the GIS pro, excellent in cartography and GIS science. People have moved into app development, understanding the back-end IT staff. How many GIS managers have had to learn how to speak IT to a group that doesn't know what GIS is? That's important work, and that's how we get things done. But as we've evolved into this systems of systems world, there's a whole bunch of different roles. This isn't just a challenge, it's also an opportunity. You have the ability right now to co-opt people from around the organization who are working in this ecosystem, data scientists who are dying to get access to the geospatial data, who can use things like the R-Bridge to connect and get some things done that we've never been able to do before. App developers who don't know what GIS is but understand a REST API. IT providers that can help you get that back end covered. Now, one role I'd like to highlight is this mission enabler evangelist role. I would bet if I brought Nathan out here again and asked him, his team has been heavily engaged in outreach to the missions that would be taking advantage of the Map Hub, helping them understand how to solve business problems and helping them understand how to get quick wins with basic technology. One of our largest customers from Esri is the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, or NGA. You may not work with them, but they're the world's largest mapping agency, and they serve intelligence and map information to the Department of Defense and the intelligence community, DoD and IC, to use the acronyms. Their job is absolutely essential to the safety and security of our nation and to the security of the world. They were rolling out a portal similar to Map Hub, and they realized that their mission users didn't understand what they could do with it. So they assembled a mission enabling team, an evangelist team, and they literally went from mission to mission a couple weeks at a time and taught people how to get quick wins with things like story maps, how to do their analytics in the portal and share that with other groups that needed to see the results of that tradecraft. By doing that, over the course of about 2 years, they've increased the user base to over 100,000 named users attaching to the portal, each one of those missions solving real critical safety, security, defense, and intelligence problems. It's simply mind-blowing, but they understood this key outreach role. And I'd like you all to think about that as you think about making a business impact across your organization. So finally, This doesn't really help a lot unless we're very practical and we can accomplish our goals distinctly and succinctly. So I'd like to close with a few ideas about that. But first, let's talk about American Red Cross. American Red Cross is an organization I'm sure you all know, and for those of you from Houston, obviously you've been through a very difficult time the last year, and Red Cross was here through the middle of that and has been involved as you've gone through the long, drawn-out recovery process. But American Red Cross didn't start on the day of that hurricane from ground zero. They established a clear location strategy at an executive level several years prior. The executives understood that they could put location and intelligence in the hands of 60,000 volunteers and solve very important issues and allow the organization to function much better. They articulated and described key initiatives like managing and optimizing shelter locations, like pulling in volunteers in emergencies in a more location-centric way, observing and managing supply chains in times of crisis, field surveys of damage, understanding where the impacts are, bigger analytical workflows to understand the effects of a disaster. All of these were thought through and sequenced in a logical plan that included workforce development, getting early adopters and enablers who are ready to engage in times of crisis and make sure that the new capability is rolling out effectively. They designed from the cloud for the beginning. At the end of the day, what they have done and what they continue to do is extremely impactful. These pictures are from here, actually several blocks from here. The folks looking at the map standing up were looking at predicted flood zones and making important decisions about where to open and close shelters that day based on where the floods would be the next day. That was not just a system problem for them, that was a big data problem, and they were getting feeds from the Weather Service and NOAA's water center that was doing big data flood prediction based on all the water flows. It was the first time that I've seen true collaboration in a time of crisis between multiple organizations, but that's because they had enabled this. And they embedded expert staff in the disaster response center here who knew the technology through and through and could make sure that all the new users were being successful. So what can we learn from Red Cross about how to approach executing a location strategy? The first thing is to really revisit and understand what makes a sound location strategy. As I said at the beginning, it's about vision, bold ideas that help you understand what your organization can do to increase business outcomes. It's about organization, understanding what you have and how you need to grow and evolve. It's about focused initiatives like Red Cross that solve problems one at a time, each one bringing incremental business value and maximizing impact. And of course, it takes some diligence and planning to put it all together in a roadmap that you can follow that's not just technology, but also people and infrastructure. So this idea of an initiative is important. Initiatives are focused around singular business problems, they have clear success criteria, and they can work in parallel or in sequence. Sometimes they build off one another, sometimes they're related. Good ways to think about initiatives are those common patterns of use I talked about earlier. You can frame initiatives in these ways to get started quickly and think about the patterns of problems that you can solve and the ways to approach those problems. And as I said earlier, many of these patterns are related, so often they're paired or combined into single initiatives that really make business impact. So within an initiative, there's a couple things to think about. At a high level, it's pretty straightforward. Plan, deploy, review what you've done, adapt and evolve it, and then continue to operate and improve your systems all the time. But I want you to think about other things. What are the quick wins you can achieve? What's going to show business value to your stakeholders rapidly? Get something out there and then improve it over time. When you're planning, you're not just planning the technology. Of course, that's part of it. Good architecture, solid plans on what applications you'll use, what data you need. It also means the workforce plan, the rollout plan, the infrastructure plan. As you adapt to what you've learned, of course, you're feeding that back into this initiative, but it's also informing and evolving your location strategy. You usually learn something about your business, about your people, and about the technology as you do an initiative that might help you reprioritize or think about things differently in your overall location strategy. So I'd like to close bringing some of this together. I believe strongly that you can achieve the kind of maximum impact we're talking about with that bold vision and very practical steps. I wish you all success in this journey and look forward to meeting as many of you as possible over the next couple days.
Thank you, Brian. I thought Brian's presentation was really good. And the thing that I really want you thinking about are those 3 circles. Because a lot of you here are here this week to think about the circle on top, the technology. What's coming out in 10.6? What's happening with Pro? What are we doing with ArcGIS Enterprise? But those 2 other foundational circles are just as important. Your infrastructure, about the cloud, on-premise, hybrid, and then more importantly, the organizational changes that are happening. You're going to hear us talk about that a lot during the next couple of days, about how your role is so important within your organization. And that's what we're really here about, is to really think about how we support you in your role.